My son walked with a limp his entire life. He couldn't play sports. He couldn't run with his children. He spent 40 years believing he fell down the stairs that night in 1969. He didn't fall. I pushed him. I broke his leg with a hammer to keep him out of Vietnam. I watched him struggle for 4 decades, and I never told him why. I'm 79 years old. My name is Robert. And when my son finally learned the truth, he said 4 words I'll never forget. You ruined my life. Was he right? Did I ruin his life? Or did I save it? I've asked myself that question every single day for the past 5 years. And I still don't know the answer. But I need to tell you this story. Because what I did was either the greatest act of love or the worst act of betrayal a father could ever commit. Maybe it was both. You have to understand what 1969 was like. The Vietnam War was everywhere. On the television every night. In the newspapers every morning. In the conversations of every family in America. Boys were being drafted by the thousands. And they were coming home in boxes by the hundreds. I had friends who lost their sons. Good boys, strong boys. Boys who had their whole lives ahead of them. They went to Southeast Asia believing they were serving their country. They came back broken, if they came back at all. I watched mothers collapse at funerals. I watched fathers age 20 years in a single week. I saw what that war did to families. And then my son's draft number came up. My son walked with a limp his entire life. He couldn't play sports. He couldn't run with his children. He spent 40 years believing he fell down the stairs that night in 1969. He didn't fall. I pushed him. I broke his leg with a hammer to keep him out of Vietnam. I watched him struggle for 4 decades, and I never told him why. I'm 79 years old. My name is Robert. And when my son finally learned the truth, he said 4 words I'll never forget. You ruined my life. Was he right? Did I ruin his life? Or did I save it? I've asked myself that question every single day for the past 5 years. And I still don't know the answer. But I need to tell you this story. Because what I did was either the greatest act of love or the worst act of betrayal a father could ever commit. Maybe it was both. You have to understand what 1969 was like. The Vietnam War was everywhere. On the television every night. In the newspapers every morning. In the conversations of every family in America. Boys were being drafted by the thousands. And they were coming home in boxes by the hundreds. I had friends who lost their sons. Good boys, strong boys. Boys who had their whole lives ahead of them. They went to Southeast Asia believing they were serving their country. They came back broken, if they came back at all. I watched mothers collapse at funerals. I watched fathers age 20 years in a single week. I saw what that war did to families. And then my son's draft number came up. Michael was 19 years old, tall, strong, healthy. Exactly what the Army was looking for. Exactly what Vietnam would chew up and spit out. When that letter arrived, I felt something inside me die. I knew with absolute certainty that if my son went to Vietnam, he would not come back. I tried everything legal first. I talked to lawyers about deferments. I looked into college exemptions, but Michael had already dropped out. I even considered sending him to Canada, but he refused. He said he wasn't a coward. He said if his country called, he would answer. That's what killed me. My son wanted to go. He believed in duty, in honor, in serving something greater than himself. He was proud to be drafted. And that pride was going to get him killed. My wife, God rest her soul, she felt the same fear I did. We would lie awake at night, holding each other, crying silently. She begged me to do something, anything. She said she would rather have a son who hated her than a son in a grave. I made my decision 3 days before Michael was supposed to report for his physical examination. If he passed that exam, he would be on a plane to basic training within a month. And from there, straight to hell. March 14th, 1969. I remember every detail. Michael had gone to bed early. He was excited about his physical, if you can believe that. Excited to go to war. Excited to possibly die. I waited until midnight. I went to the garage and got my hammer. I stood in the hallway outside his bedroom for over an hour. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the tool. I was crying, praying, asking God to give me another way. But there was no other way. I opened his door. He was sleeping peacefully, my beautiful boy, my firstborn son. The child I had held in my arms the day he was born. The boy I taught to ride a bike, to throw a baseball, to be a man. And I was about to cripple him. I positioned myself at the foot of his bed. I looked at his left leg. The doctors would need to see a serious break. Something that couldn't heal properly in time for deployment. Something permanent. I raised the hammer, and I swung. The sound of my son's leg breaking is something I hear every night when I try to sleep. His scream, the confusion in his eyes when he woke up, the way he looked at me standing there, and I had to pretend I had just heard the noise and come running. I told him he must have fallen out of bed. I told him he must have hit the nightstand. I lied to my son's face while he screamed in agony, and I did it to save his life. The break was severe. Compound fracture of the tibia and fibula. The doctor said he was lucky he didn't lose the leg entirely. Lucky. If only they knew. Michael failed his military physical. He was classified 4F, unfit for service. He would never go to Vietnam. He would never die in a jungle 10,000 miles from home. My plan had worked. But the cost. Oh, the cost. Michael's leg never healed right. He walked with a limp for the rest of his life. He couldn't play sports with his friends. He couldn't chase his children around the yard. He lived with chronic pain that got worse as he got older. And every time I saw him struggle, every time I saw him wince in pain, every time I saw him sit down because he couldn't stand any longer, I knew. I knew what I had done to him. He never blamed me, of course. How could he? He thought it was an accident, a terrible, random accident that changed his life. He blamed bad luck. He blamed God. He blamed that nightstand he supposedly hit. But he never blamed me, and that made it so much worse. I watched my son build a life despite what I did to him. He got married, had 2 beautiful children, found a career he loved. He was happy as someone in constant pain can be. And I told myself that justified everything. I told myself I made the right choice. But I never stopped wondering, what if I had let him go? What if he had survived Vietnam? What if he had come home whole, unbroken, able to run and jump and live without pain? What if I had stolen more from him than the war ever would have? My wife died in 2015, cancer. In her final days, she made me promise to take our secret to the grave. She said the truth would only cause more pain. She said Michael was better off not knowing. I made that promise, and I broke it 3 years later. It was 2018. Michael was 68 years old. His leg had gotten worse with age, and he was facing another surgery. He was frustrated, angry at a lifetime of pain from one accident 50 years ago. We were sitting in my living room, and he said something that broke me. He said, "You know, Dad, I've spent my whole life wondering what I did to deserve this. What did I do wrong? Why did God punish me that night?" And I couldn't let him blame God for something I did. So I told him everything: the draft notice, the fear, the hammer, the lie I had maintained for 40 years. I told my son that I crippled him on purpose, and I watched his face as the truth destroyed everything he thought he knew about his life. He didn't say anything at first. He just stared at me. I could see his mind working, going back through 50 years of memories, reframing everything. Every time he couldn't play baseball with his sons. Every time he had to sit down at a party while everyone else danced. Every surgery, every pill. Every night he couldn't sleep because of the pain. All of it, because of me. Then he looked at me with eyes I didn't recognize. Not my son's eyes, a stranger's eyes. And he said, "You ruined my life." He stood up, grabbed his cane, and walked out of my house. That was 5 years ago. He hasn't spoken to me since. Not a call, not a letter, not a word. My grandchildren don't know me anymore. My son's wife sends me photos sometimes, out of pity, I think, but Michael won't allow any contact. I am dead to him. The father who loved him so much he crippled him. Dead. Was Michael right? Did I ruin his life? I've thought about this every day for 5 years. I've made lists of the boys from our town who went to Vietnam. 11 went, 4 came back, 4 out of 11. The odds were not in my son's favor. Tommy Richardson, Michael's best friend, he went to Vietnam, stepped on a landmine 3 weeks after arriving. They shipped him home in a box. Michael was a pallbearer at his funeral. Would that have been my son? Would I have carried his coffin instead of watching him limp across a stage to get his college diploma? Would I have visited his grave instead of holding his children in my arms? I don't know. And that's the thing about what I did. I'll never know. Michael will never know. We can't see the life that would have been. We can only see the life that is. And the life that is one where my son hates me, but he's alive. He has children. He has grandchildren. He has a life, even if that life includes pain. Is that enough? Does survival justify suffering? People ask me if I regret what I did. They expect a simple answer, yes or no, but there is no simple answer. Do I regret causing my son a lifetime of pain? Yes, every single day. Do I regret saving him from a war that killed 58,000 American boys? No, not for 1 second. Both of these things are true. I hurt my son and I saved my son. I am his destroyer and his protector. I am the villain of his story and the hero he'll never acknowledge. I am all of these things at once. Some nights I lie awake wondering if I should have let him go. Let fate decide. Let God decide. Who was I to play God with my son's life? But then I remember the bodies, the telegrams, the mothers screaming at funerals. And I know that I couldn't have lived with myself if I had done nothing. If I had let my son walk into that meat grinder when I had the power to stop it. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not even asking you to understand. What I did was monstrous, even if it came from love. I know that. But I want you to think about something. How far would you go to protect someone you love? Where is the line between protection and destruction? And if you crossed that line, would you be able to live with it? I crossed that line. I've lived with it for 50 years, and I'll die with it, probably soon, probably alone. My son is alive. He has a family. He has a future. That's what I gave him. But he also has pain, resentment, a father he can't forgive. That's what I gave him too. If Michael ever watches this, and I hope he does, I want him to know something. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the pain. I'm sorry for the lie. I'm sorry for every moment you suffered because of what I did. But I'm not sorry you're alive. I'm not sorry I got to watch you graduate, get married, become a father. I'm not sorry your children exist or their children. That's a lot of life, Michael. A lot of life that wouldn't exist if you had stepped on a landmine in 1969. Maybe that doesn't make it right. Maybe nothing makes it right. But it's the truth. I loved you too much to let you die, even if that love destroyed us both. To everyone watching, I don't know what the right answer is. I don't know if I'm a monster or a hero or something in between. All I know is that I was a father who was terrified of losing his son. And in that terror, I did something unforgivable. If you have someone you love, hold them close. Talk to them. Tell them the truth, even when it's hard. Don't wait 50 years like I did. Don't let secrets destroy what love built. If this story made you think, share it with someone. Leave a comment. Tell me what you would have done. Because I've been asking myself that question for 50 years, and I still don't have an answer. I'm 79 years old. My son is alive, and he'll never speak to me again. I don't know if that's a tragedy or a triumph. Maybe it's both.